Here it is, another Thursday night, and I am back on. Now let's see, while we're waiting on people to show up, and play with this here light bar just a little bit. Yeah, that seems a nice, soft, a little bit softer. Now let's be adventurous and try different colors. Kind of bluish green. Nope. I guess that's where we're going to go. Sparrow Bushcraft, good evening. Justin, hello, brother. How you doing? I was doing a high-speed supper creation for Miss Hope, and tonight was meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and LeSueur peas, and had a appointment, and I got back from that, and I was a little bit late, so I was in a hurry to get everything done in a hurry. So, Apex, good evening. Chad, good evening. Sparrow Bush Crab. No, I'm not on Threads. I'm always one of the last ones to get on any new trend. Elvin, hello. Good evening, Bear. Brad, hello. Midwestern. Oh, it's actually cooled down a little bit in Alabama. It's right now 87. It's the heat index been over 100, but it's actually cooled down last couple of days for us, where it's only in the 90s. Oh, good, sister. Glad you got your notifications done. Mr. Johnny, hello. Again, hello. Well, good. Glad you enjoyed the Nighthawk. That's what I designed it for, to be the quick trips where I need a little gear, a little food, whatever, like 3 days the most. Yeah. But I'm having extension pouches. We're in the development right now to come up with extension pouches on it, so you can add up to a week worth of camping gear in it. Mac Payne, hello. Briar Smoke, hello. John Moore, Bob, good evening. Gordon. YouTube Press, good evening. Clifford, good evening. Robert. Forest Witch, hello. Herbert Oakley, hello, North Carolina. Gordon. CJ, hello. Midwestern Free Thinker, gotcha. I want to say Fleet Thinker for some reason. Oh, I'm ready for deer season too, dude. I mean, really. Give more hello to Iceland. Andrew, good evening. Thayer, hello. CJ, good evening. Oh, Gordon, good. Going fishing. Worm Wrangler, good evening. Place en nombre, hello there. Eric Vader, hello. Homie Omi, hello there. 2020. Well, everybody's in the house tonight. D. Collins. Wayne Powell, evening, sir. What's your opinion of the new Boy Scouts? Do you feel the woodsmanship portion is overlooked? I do. When I got seriously involved in the late 80s into the early 90s, and I was went to National Camp School and became a shooting sports director from like 95 to 99. I talked to an old Mr. Bill who had been a scouter for 50 years. And I asked him, I said, when did it change from being like I had remembered about, outdoor skills, being independent, free thinking, and et cetera, and become a predominantly just a youth program for a church to get the kids locked up somewhere out of the way so the parents could all go off on church holidays. And he said about 1978 that it had changed for him. And I really think it's overlooked. I think that's something we need to stress in our youth. It gives them a feeling of independence, of being able to deal with situations, and they don't get that if you don't let them deal with situations. Pharaoh, are you going to Georgia Fall Camp? I am going to Fall Camp out. Yes, I will be. I'm going to try to teach a class up there. I've got one planned. It's whether or not they let me up or not. That's the question. But I am going to be there. Outback Owl, good evening to Australia. Gordon, any chance of starting on the Blackbird Cookbook? Talk to Bear. That's his project now. I will bow to his superior knowledge in the kitchen. Yeah, I really think that it was worthwhile. Something for the young people to focus on. And I know they had a big controversy long about their girls in scouts. They always had girls. They had Girl Scouts. And then whenever I was there back in the 80s, there was Explorers, which was co-ed. They were boys and girls together. And it was called Explorers, where the girls competed for the same type of stuff like the boys did. So it really wasn't anything new. They just kind of got rid of Explorers and made it into one thing. But I think it is something that's sadly lacking today, and that our youth need that kind of. We've lost a generation, because whenever I was coming up, you had all these old hunters, old woodsmen that were World War One, World War II vets, Korea vets, and still hunted and camped and fished. That was their escape to get away from work, was to go spend a couple hours in the woods, a creek bank somewhere, or just sitting around a fire drinking coffee. And it was often, you take the kids with you, because Mama wanted some, get a chance for her and her ladies to get together, have a bottle of wine, and sit and talk about the old men. So there was that give and take. Did your dad ever babysit you? Oh yeah, and I worked every summer in the back of an 18-wheeler. I spent a lot of time on a creek bank running a trot line. You called it babysitting. We called it working for the family. But it really prepared me to be independent and to have to deal with my own situations. Don't always just expect that somebody's going to tell you what to do. You've got to be able to deal with your own situations. And you only get that by being put. How do you get a job without experience? How do you get experience without a job? How do you become old and wise? First, you must be young and stupid, and then you shall become old and wise. So, yeah, CJ. Well, whenever I was in high school ROTC, you know, there were Marine units at Dothan. We were Army units. There was a Special Forces unit not terribly far from us. And then you had a Coast Guard unit. You had Navy, Air Force, ROTCs, in high school. You also had Boy Scout groups. And you had things like out here in Fort Rooker where it was sort of Boy Scouts, but it was actually being run by vets who were taking all their kids and putting them through it with the eye and mindset of preparing them to go on into the military. It was like early training. And so we were doing camping, we were doing whatever with military surplus and etc. I mean, I had years of experience of sleeping in a pup tent before I ever went into basic. So I think that's sadly lacking today. Ford Tractor, good evening. James, good evening. Yeah, Semper Tyrannis, yeah. Well, most of us kids go when you showed that you had enough maturity, and those were milestones in a young man's life. When you're old enough that they trusted you with a pocket knife, to carry it with you all the time. When you were old enough to be trusted to light the fire, whatever the fire was. When you were old enough and trusted enough to go hunting with them, usually not toting a gun, toting a croaker sack, because we're shooting birds or rabbits or whatever. You played dog. They got to see how you function, how you understand firing range and stuff like that. So you didn't do anything stupid, irrational. First time they told you could be in the family hunt, that was big things, you know. And so each one of those things, by the time you were 10 or 12 year old, you're carrying a 22 rifle or a shotgun in the woods. We went camping, you're carrying guns without any adult standing there watching you, because you had been taught and you understood the responsibility that came with that. And so you carried it because you needed it. It wasn't because it was a hick thing. Hey, you got to have me one. No, there were snakes, there were rabid dogs, or whatever, and you needed one. If you were just going down the creek to fish, and a lot of us boys had them 22s that were the FIE Buffalo Scouts. They were $65 22 revolvers that the Rough Rider revolver today, Heritage Rough Rider, is just about a 1-to-1 copy of it. But ours were like $55. And, you know, I cut a lot of yards to get $55. And I bought my first one. And we were carrying them full of rat shot, shoot snake. Tim Odell, yeah. We had a lot of people in my family that we hunted for game to put on the table, but we had a lot of people also in the family that would do market hunting in some way or form, mostly to feed the families. Okay, homie. So if you're taking an axe and saw, what two kinds of knives do you bring? Like a 4-inch candy and a 3-inch flat? What's the best combo? Okay, I see what you're saying there. If you already got an axe and saw, your big stuff's covered. What would you be? Well, Scandies are really good for cutting softwoods, cutting meat, food preps, and stuff like that. Flat grind, on the other hand, is actually a little more, in my case, what I found, a little more durable in the field. But it will wedge up when you're trying to penetrate deep. It starts shouldering out and gets harder the deeper you go. So of the two, I'd pick a Scandi for just a general purpose carry, something like a 3 or 4 inch Scandi to do all my light work and things. And of course, I'd still want to carry a pocket knife for the small detail work. Oh yeah, gray wolf. That's true. I remember the first time I was supposed to go kill chickens. We, I was gleefully happy to, because I've gone in that and been spurred up so many times. It was not a love relationship. It wasn't, oh, this poor little critter. It was, let me take the axe. I'll take care of this. You know, can I kill them all? No. Two, just two. The white one and the gray one. I want those two. Don't kill anything else. You didn't have to tell me twice. Carolina, I hear you. Oh, we used to do mumbly peg and everything else. Stupid, which we had lawn darts, you know, the metal lawn darts. You'd sling them up there, and we'd be out there dark. You couldn't even see them. You throw them up, and we all running around like idiots trying to escape, and then hope somebody didn't get harpooned in top of the head. God, we were stupid back in them days. Anonymous, yeah, you cut a lot of yards, make the money you needed to get what you needed. And I hear you. K-Town, what oils were used for cooking when you were younger? Lard and bacon grease was the number one and number two. On the stove, there was usually a little bitty pour pot, and bacon grease would sit in the cast iron skillet till it cooled down until it was just kind of oil again, and then granny tipped up and let it drain into that. And then it would be taken over for hot, a little bit of water put in it, put back on the stove, bring it up to a boil, get all the oil come loose, and that would be dashed out and wiped out and used. But that bacon oil was number one. The number two was lard. Why? Because lard was store bought. And so it was better for making biscuits. It was better for making baked goods and stuff than the bacon grease. but for frying or something like that, or just put a couple of drops on the pan, smear it around, crack egg in the morning, it was bacon grease by far, because we ate a lot of pork, and you always save that and rotated it through again. Chuck Miller, good evening. Robin, good evening. Jerry Donnell, this is a Boy Scout Explorers Scoutmaster hat. It's crushable felt. Had it since 1993, 4, 5, something like that. I know for a fact I had it in 95 whenever 4 or 5, whenever I did my first national camp school, I had it. So I've had it for a long time. Got an identical one that was brand new. It's still sitting at the cabinet waiting for this one to give up the ghost so I can fall back on it. Yeah, it's a favorite hat of mine. Good evening, Jonathan Frisbee. Guys, Jonathan went through a medical procedure today. Thumbs up, dude. Thank you for hanging in there, brother. Outback Cow, yes, it is. I have one of those books. Actually, I've had several subscribers out of Australia, New Zealand have sent me things over the years from that part of the world. And a couple of bushcraft books I found very, very useful, you know. Andy T, thank you very much. Yeah, Andrew, Crisco. Well, Crisco was good, but lard was cheaper. You know, we was poor. Oh, Simple Drown's 410, yeah. We had 20s. 410 shells cost too much. 20 were cheaper. Yeah. Snapper, hey, good evening. Oh yeah, I remember those days. Which we'd go out and play softball with a wooden croquet ball. We didn't have a softball and a aluminum bat. And the sun go down, we'd still be out there playing in the dark, and you'd hear cracking, everybody do like that, and see, didn't hear it hit the ground. You had to run around out there. We called it blind man softball, trying to find the ball and tag somebody out. And every time you'd pitch, you know, the catcher would do like that, and you'd toss the ball toward it, and you could barely see a glimmer in the starlight. He'd whack that thing. You just hope you didn't get brained by it. Oh, the stupid things we did. Tiny Titan, good evening. K-Town, I heard that, yeah, the Indiana Jones was a disappointment. Shaner, good evening, Blackie. I have been researching kukri knives. Do you have any recommendations for a good quality one? If you just have never tried out the design, okay, go get one of the cold steel kukri machetes. They're 25, 30 bucks. It's a good piece of steel. It's great for light duty. It will teach you how to handle a kukri and how it works. Great for the light stuff. After that, you got to decide, do I need a hatchet or do I need a machete? If the kind of wood you're in, if the light brush, that still should serve just fine. If you're in thicker stuff and you want something to act like a hatchet, go to on Amazon and look up Gurkha, Gurka, Gurkha House or Kukri House. It's the same company, different names for the same company. And look at theirs. And one like mine, you'll see one that says it's Afghan issue. That's almost like mine, just a modern version of mine. And those are good. Those were meant for military issues, so they're well made. It's gonna run you about $100, but they're well made. David Lewis, thank you very much. Homie, glad to do it. Awesome. You prepared a sleeping bag. I got to do that. When I went up to Pathfinder, my down bag had sprung a little leak, and I've got to get off my tail and get out here and put it across the work table and resew it. I've got a lot of miles in that down bag, but it got rolled over in the morning and feathers. So it wasn't many, but you know what I mean. I got a leak, and I got to find that and sew it up. Benton Lizzie, thank you very much. Yeah, I am feeling a lot better, guys. When I got checked out, as I said, it was an infection around my lungs, and I'm breathing a lot better now. I'm about 80% in feeling. I'm just slow to return, guys. Just face it, I'm not that young anymore, but I feel about 80%, and it's getting better. So thank y'all, and I'm gonna keep kicking. I'm just waiting for the cool temperatures to show up so we can get out and do a lot of stuff. Right now, the heat, again, the doc stress, stay out of the heat, stupid. So I got to do a lot of stuff inside. Dang. K-Bar and Condor are actually decent as far as the cookery. If you're looking for a little bit cheaper one, look at those. They are decent. Yeah, Rich, I admit, I go back and look at the video. Man, I look like death warmed over last week, and I admit that. Uh, my health is not great. I'm wore out, and so the hard time of the year for me is the summer because it really drains me, and that seems just to be whenever it's just like, ugh, you just got no energy, you can't hardly do nothing. So, and then having that infection just made it worse. But I'm gonna do what I can to hang in here as long as I can. Edgar, shortest kukri for self-defense with a 7-inch work? Yes. The type of kukri you're looking for is called a suruptai. It's thin, fighting knife, machete. Think machete. And so it's like a flying razor blade, dude. I've had a suruptai, and someone not long ago gifted me one that was from a New Zealand officer who had spent time with the Gurkhas, and he family gifted it to me. And it's a flying razor blade. Mine's that long, but they do make a short one. I'm here to tell you, once you get it edged, it's a self-defense. It's impressive. Tactical fumble experience with parades. I have played one. I had someone here that spent a lot of time in the Philippines military that came in here and around light stuff like bamboo vines. It's good if you're in a semi-tropical environment, sort of like light jungle or something. Yeah, way to go, dude. Um, Chopping heavier stuff is not its strong suit. It's just the way it's angled. But that's where it developed. It developed in the Philippines and that part of the world. So yeah, if you've got that similar type terrain that you're going to be going in, probably be a good choice. Dark Knight Diesel. Have you ever used a Tom Brown tracker style knife? I like the idea, but haven't used one myself. I have. I've used an actual one, and I've used a ripoff. And I can tell you, it is not, in my opinion, okay, my opinion, and Porter still won't get you a cup of coffee. It's a very good game processor. It really, really is. That curve on the back of it is perfect for scraping hides. And so for cleaning fish, cleaning deer, something like that, it actually works fairly well. As a woods tool, as a shelter builder, it's kind of awkward, just to be honest. It's not balanced for that. It's kind of like a meat cleaver. And so as a cutting tool, like I said, for processing game, I really like mine. When I got it's a Chinese ripoff, I resharpened it to make it the blade a little bit thinner, a little bit of profile. And it cleans fish really well, you know. But it would not be my first choice as a camper. I prefer a kukri or something with a little bit more fine, where I'm taking the place of an axe. See, a saw and a small blade would be a better choice than that. A lot of guys love them, and that's great. I'll never tell you never get one and you. It's your style, your preference. I have a friend in North Alabama absolutely loves his. It is his favorite toy in the world, and he does good work with it. So again, it just comes down to you, what it is that you enjoy. Let's see. Shaner, yeah, it does. It strips bark off of trees real well. Dark Meta, you have a avatar pick. Awesome. Diane, good evening. Andrew, what's a good type of boot to wear in the woods? Down here, I like a jungle boot. Now, the Air Force issue boot looks like the old Vietnam jungle boot, but it's a little bit lighter, and I like it better. It holds up well. And those are the ones I'm wearing right now. So I wear them during the heat of the summer. And then in the fall, I'll change over to those Desert Rat Marine Corps boots. They're just a little heavier, a little thicker boot, a little warmer. But for summertime, I wear jungle boots because I want the support, but I want them to drain quick because of our sweat down here. As I sweat, it's got those two air holes in it, pump air in out pretty well, and it helps keep your feet a little bit drier. At least that's my choice. Oh yeah, Snapper, you finding one of the Gore-Tex liners? That's cool. Buck 112. Hello to Rome, Georgia. Shane, well, hello to East Tennessee. Thank you for watching. Yeah, dark matter, those C1s, they can be big. When you get them fully loaded, they're a handful. Lonely Wolf Outdoors. What's the most beautiful place you camped? That's a hard one. If I let my mind drift back and be sentimental, I can tell you a place I'd like to sit one more time. I'd love to camp out with a fire up there and just sit and look. And that was in Estes National Park on the Continental Divide above Bear Lake. That that was beautiful. Looking at the Continental Divide, I mean, you're literally on the ridge right there, and down below is Bear Lake. And me and a companion were sitting up there, and a thunderstorm came over the mountain. It didn't go over; it come through the peaks like that. So we were sitting there talking, and suddenly this fog rolled over us, and suddenly it was this thunderstorm pouring down here in the bottom, and we're sitting up there in the cloud, watching it rain down there below us, and we didn't have a drop on us because we was too high up. Yeah, I'd like to go back there. Sometimes I roll my little thing over here to keep up with the thing. It jumps up 40 or 50 inches. So y'all forgive me if I miss you. Just throw it back there. I'll catch you again. Y'all doing good conversation. I'm trying to catch up. Jay's Life. I really enjoy the videos you did with Grouch. Reminds me of having out with my elders. Will there be more? Yes, there will be more. I plan once it cools off a little bit to go over and me and him go sit down by the creek by the fire and spend a couple hours. I'll probably have to break that up into 4 or 5 videos. But let's just go sit and smoke our pipes and probably have a wee dram of 18 or 20-year-old scotch and sit there and talk about history and family and friends in the woods. Times like that. I want to spend as much time with them as I can. Shaner, when are you going to do another run of your haversacks? I'd like to get in line to purchase one. If you will go to Down and Dirty Woods with an S, woodscraft at gmail.com and say, put me on the list, I'll put you on the next list. That next run should start in August because I expect this run we're on to get them in to mail out. This run we're on right now. will be delivered to me in August, and I will be starting a new run in August. That run will probably deliver in November, I think. So the one right now that's sold out, it should be that they should start arriving to me like the second week or so of August, something along that. And I'll start mailing them out immediately as soon as I get them in. And as soon as he tells me, okay, I'm ready to start shipping, I'll announce another run and let y'all know. But if you'll go to downanddirtywoodscraft@gmail.com and say, put me on the list, I'll put you on the next run list. And I email everybody on that list first, give them a head start before I tell the rest of the world. As fair as I can be. Dark Meta, I have used an Alice pack many, many times, and they can serve. They didn't fit me. I'll tell you why. The width was okay. The depth was too deep for me. When you loaded it, it's like your center of balance for me was too far back. I'm 5'10", 200 pounds. And when I was wearing the Alice and it was loaded to go, even though you notice how the Alice's angle where your butt is further out at the bottom where you got your frame, if you're using the frame, and it's angled out to push back toward you, it puts it so far behind me. You always felt like you were falling backwards. You either had to walk hunched over like a turtle. It was never comfortable for me. Which, on the other hand, Dan Lutz, big old huge Dan Lutz, he toted one without a frame, and it was like toting a haversack to him. He'd put 70, 80 pounds on that sucker and throw it on the back like it was nothing. But for me, the Alice pack, if you go look in my ground pounder series, I do a thing where I show you all the tips and tricks I know about an Alice pack, how I put a carry handle on one and everything else. I cut the pocket out of mine. Boy, I took grief for that, but for me, it was in the way. I know a lot of guys love it, and it helped balance it for them. It just didn't work for me. They're a really good pack if it fits you. That's just the only thing I can tell you. Oh yeah, for a work pack like that, yeah, you can do it. They're tough. They are really tough bags. Levin Bang Bang, he's in the house. Hello, sir. Okay. OSTEKUSTE. Since we met up there, glad to have met you up there. I'm going to butcher that and try to. I want to say Ostiku, Ostikuti. I'm just going to say Osti. No insult meant. Just Southern tongue can't wrap around it too well. William Haley, hello to Miami. Where would I buy a kukri from? Go to Amazon and look up. As I said earlier, if you're looking for an actual kukri, go to Amazon, look up Kukri House or Gurkha House, and there's one that says it was a Afghan issue or Afghan model, and that one is almost the same as mine. That is one they made for troops to carry in the desert here recently, and so they're made to that standard. There's a lot of kukris made by those companies. The question is it made for just show or is it made to work? And if it's a British #2, or if it's one that says as issued like that, or if it says villager, it's meant to work. So that's where I'd send people to go look. And if you've never used a kukri before, I recommend you start out, go get a Cool Steel kukri machete, the short one. It's got all the dynamics. It's just lighter and easy to learn. Nice big handle to work with, and try it out. If you really like the way it performs, get a good kukri. On the other hand, if it's like, it just doesn't work for me, my style or whatever, you're not out a whole lot of money. Edgar, what are your thoughts on inflatable boats? They work. They can be really, really useful, especially people that are coming into areas they got a backpack in or fly in or something. Absolutely. Not a lot of use down here in my neck of the woods because we got gators, and gators like to bite things. And so I know people that have used them. I know I've got good friends that's got inflatable kayaks, and they go up and down the rivers. I had to pull over and patch holes in a Coleman canoe where a gator bit it before. I was pouring water in from finger-sized holes in it. So, yeah, I don't want to be hung up like dental floss on a 12, 14 footer. So, just reason I don't do it, but they be really good, but just I haven't got that much experience with them. Jonathan Gable, Blackie, do you have any experience with the Savage 22 410 combo rifle? I do. My wife had one for many years, and it was a great game getter. In fact, hers was a 22 20 gauge instead of the 22 410. Now, of course, they've also got the, I want to say it was a M6 or whatever, like Canterbury had. Those are nice, and they work well as a behind-the-seat thing, and just survival gun work fine. Tiny Titan, on long wood trips, what pack do you carry then? I will carry what I'm doing right now, like my Nighthawk, and I have carried the German Alpine pack for 10 or 12 years before I got this. I just like the way it carries better. And I can do for up to a week in something like that. Now, in the winter, I've got a much bigger backpack with an internal frame on it. It's about like a 65 liter, but the only time I ever bring that thing out is in the dead of winter when I am backpacking because everything's bulky. I got a big bulky sleeping bag, big bulky long underwear, big bulky jacket, big bulky socks. It's not the weight that much more, it's just everything's bulky. And so I need the room to pack it in there. And so that's when I do that. But other than that, I can do a week in a German Alice pack. Alice pack or an Alpine pack. Easy. All I got to do is my basic gear, my basic kit, and the food, and that's it. And I don't eat much, so it's easy for me. Tennessee Smoky, are you one to consume dandelions, fried flowers, boiled roots? I have in the past. We would forage quite a bit back in the day. And I've had several people ask me, why don't I do foraging videos? It's because I'm not standing there with you. And my personal rule that when I started learning this stuff was I do not want to learn anything that in any way, shape, or form has a poisonous look-like. Not even close. If it's this and only this can be this, yeah, I'll learn it. That's the reason I don't want to learn any mushrooms, any of those, because everybody says, oh, but, yeah, and then you hear about the expert that's in the intensive care unit because he slipped up. I'm already in a bad situation that ain't going to help. So I learned a lot of evil stuff around my neck of the woods that enough to get me fed and get me out of here. It's never going to be, the big fat whatever. If we're down to me foraging for food, I'm really good at fishing. I'm really good at fishing and frogging and deering and stuff like that. I had to poach to feed the family as a young man. So, yeah, I'll find a meal. There'll be something to eat. But if we're down to where I'm having to hunt, a lamb's quarter or we found we'll do it for salad and stuff while we're out at camp. Wood sorrel or something like that, times have got tough. Ostkust. Okay, Ostkust. I will try to wrap my tongue around that. Thank you. Will Rowell, have you ever tried any of the Uberti conversion revolvers? Yes, I have a 71 conversion that's 1860 converted to 55 Colt. That was manufactured that way. It didn't come in as a percussion gun. It came in as a that, and it's a very accurate revolver and had a fantastic trigger when I pulled out of the box. And me and Dan Lutz shot that thing out to 150 yards at targets. So yeah, they can be very, very good guns. Lonely Wolf Hours, do you use the two blades on the cooker sheath? I have. Now, one of them is square-sided. That is really, really hard. And that is for sharpening the steel. It's also for making at like the 90-degree spine on a knife. That's what that's for. It's for making tinder. It's also so hard, it's harder than the blade, which is impressive because most of them blades are coming in like 65 to 70. Mine, a brand new file skid on it. It's so hard. But the Carta and the Chakma, I think it's the Chakma, is the four square sides on it. And that one is one, it's super, super hard. And it's to be you could actually take a sharp edge and bear down and cut steel with it and to sharpen with it and put an edge on it or get rid of a burr or something like that. And at the same time, you can take wood with it and use it to shave and tinder with it. Fine shavings of fat wood or something to strike and spark and get going. Oh, Combo's glad you like it. The old ruck. Those are good packs. That Camp Craft one. Hey, yeah, I cleared it. It was called putting meat in the freezer. Tough time. Tennessee Smoky. That sounds good too. I actually like catfish. Take canned fish and a little bit of lemon and a little bit of wood sorrel. Put into the fish carcass and then put lemon in it and wrap it up and bake it. I like the flavor it gives it. It gives it a lemony. That wood sorrel to me has kind of got a little bit of citrus taste anyway. And so whenever you put it in there and steam like that, it makes it taste like lemon pepper fish to me. YouTube press. Yeah, things just disappear like that, don't it? Them weeds that nobody cares about, and suddenly find out, hey, wait a minute, them's edible. Bushcraft Preacher, good evening. Oh, now, Jeff, boiled okra and tomatoes is good. I like baked eggplant. Loved it when I was a kid. Fried eggplant, yeah, really good. Yeah, that's the thing, Edgar. It's just times get hard. Put a net across the stream, get all the fish out of it. And yeah, you'll have something to eat, but you also won't have nothing there to eat after that. And after the Civil War and by the end of the Great Depression, we had eaten just about everything down here in the South of wild game. And my granddaddy talked about how the woods were just empty. That the last Black Panther had been killed in like 1934 in the swamps. They had hung it up from the second floor of the courthouse for 2 days for everybody to see that the last panther was dead. There was just nothing left in the woods. But in my lifetime, I've seen so much stuff come back to where the alligators are back now. The wolves are back now. The armadillo is back. We didn't have them when I was a kid. Um, I want to live long enough to see elk come back. They've turned them loose in Kentucky and they've turned them loose in Tennessee. And I got a good friend of mine that lives on the Tennessee River, and he sent me a picture back last year in the Tennessee River fishing, and they were elk in the water swimming by him. So I want to live long enough to see elk in Alabama. Other than that, I've seen the bald eagle come back. Me and my wife were going to work, taking her to work the other morning, and we looked over to the right, and there was either it was an immature a bald eagle, which is dark colored, or it was a gold eagle in a tree sitting there. And we hadn't seen one of them in 40 years. I've seen bald. I've only seen one gold eagle in my life, and that was after a big thunderstorm, massive supercell, and he was just exhausted. He ended up in a plum tree in our backyard, just sitting there resting. I mean, he must have been caught in that thing for hours. Yeah, the Cold Steel Special Forces shovel are really good shovels. You can chop with it, dig with it. Great thing to have in a car or in a kit. Very good. Yeah, Andrew, lemon pepper catfish. Yep. Dark Night. Yeah, they were few. I remember my granddaddy talk about the first time he was a boy and he saw a deer track, and he told his granddaddy, and everybody had to come out of the field and they had to run that deer to ground and kill it right in. Not because they wanted the meat, because they didn't want it eating the corn. It wasn't viewed as a food source. It was viewed as a pest. And so they'd slaughtered deer on sight because they were eating the corn, and that was a cash crop. Shatner, I don't, on as far as the derailments, other than the fact that there's a whole lot of them popping up for, doesn't seem for a reason why, does it? Just too many to be just accidents. Yep, Zippy to do that. They did whenever I was a boy. We weren't allowed to shoot doe. It was bucks only. And then about the time I was getting out of high school, they finally said you could have a doe during Christmas holiday, one. And now they tell you can shoot a doe a day and you're limited to 3 bucks. So it's a doe a day and 3 bucks in Alabama. And our season starts in October and ends in February. You got a lot of deer in Alabama now. Yeah, that chronic wasting disease is bad. They still will not tell you, is it safe to eat it or not? Well, we want to collect the heads. Here in Alabama, they want you to bring your deer's head to these collection sites so they can look for the chronic wasting disease, and they want to see if it's toxic to eat. That's a hell of a way to do something, ain't it? Y'all go ahead and eat all the shellfish. We don't know if it's got botulism in it or not, but go ahead and eat. That makes so much sense to me. All the money we put into this, and y'all can't run it through a lab. Just pick a piece and try it raw on a thing. What's the bacteria in it? Then cook it. Is the bacteria dead? Yes or no? That's all we need to know. You can't even tell us that. They just don't want you to hunt, is what it is. Oh, Edgar, yeah, I've seen that where the ladies got all of them on the porch. I think the Eagles were sitting there thinking about getting a cat, to be honest, because that wouldn't be anything to one of them. YouTube Press, yeah, I'm a Cold Steel fanboy on that shovel. For years, I had one of them in my truck. There was a accident a few years ago, and someone had slid off in the road, and we had to try to stabilize it. And I stopped and helped. And we took that shovel and dug underneath where we could get a rope hooked around to the frame and hooked to a telephone pole, keep it from sliding on down. And somewhere in there, I lost my shovel. So I need to get off my butt, but I've got a good German one and I got another one. So I'm not without, but I really ought to get me another Cold Steel and just keep it in the back of the truck. Tim O'Neill, I would agree with you to a point, but now here's something. Because remember, I was at Walmart for all these years. We used to get all these studies and surveys that Walmart was commissioning to find out. And since 2000, 60% of all new hunters new fishermen are women. 60%. That means that the sport is changing from being guys to girls. Go look on YouTube how many girl channels there are showing archery, hunting, fishing, stuff like that. I'm tickled to death with it, and that's one of the things I hope to do at Georgia Bushcraft is I want to do a class on women in woodscraft. And I got 3 ladies of different degrees of experience that I'd like to get up on stage and let's talk about that. How I think it's the future of the sport. There's a lot of these ladies coming in. And if you get the ladies in, guess what you get? You get the next generation of boys and girls. Because if mama hunts, if mama fishes, if mama turkey hunts, you're going to get the little girls and little boys in it. And it'd be a great way for us to bring this hunting tradition back. Get mama involved and you'll get everything cooking. At least that's the way I look at it. Tiny Titan, yeah, a lot of the populations. Once the coyotes moved in here, our rabbit population did not go away, but it thinned down. I used to love to walk around the edges of the fields in February with my cap and ball revolver, looking at bunnies right after first light, and I get 5, 6, 7. That was the time to put them in the freezer. Cold weather, the wolves is gone, they're fat. Go around and pop them, and just look for the eyeball. They just appear, out there at the siege field, walking along. And then it got to where you'd walk all day and not see 2 rabbits. So you got to have a dog to scare them up. Sempertrannus, she has a botefly, wolves, botefly, etc. Lonely Wolf Outdoors, how big do you like the kukri blade? Mine is about 10, 12 inches. I think the overall length is like 16 inches with the handle and all. That's a full-size kukri to me. Once you get beyond that, it turns more into an axe and it becomes awkward for doing small work. So somewhere around that is what I like. Shaner, you missed the question. With all the chemicals going in the waterways, should we try to do extra filtering, or would the Sawyer filter take care of it? The Sawyer will take care of most of your problem. It really should. Now, it's some industrial chemicals that could end up in the water. It might not. And here's the thing people not getting. Medication, caffeine, stuff like that. That's when they treat at a sewer treatment plant, and they just had a thing pop up here this week where the Atlanta sewer treatment plant discharged a bunch of not fully treated stuff into the Chattahoochee River, which is the border between Alabama and Georgia. They just kind of went, screw it, and dumped it, And so it's not fully treated. Some of the things we're finding in fish downstream from major cities, caffeine, heart medication, cholesterol medications, because we ingest it, it goes through us and we pee it out. And when it goes to that treatment plant, it doesn't filter that out. It just eliminates the waste product and the heavy stuff. And so that water flows on out in the river, and you've got caffeine, you've got all this chemicals that a lot of it was medications that's been mixed back into the fish. So that's not being talked about a lot. But I got friends in wildlife biology that'll tell you about it in a heartbeat, about how that river south of one of the major cities up here in Tennessee, that they talked about, they went through and there were so many things coming up in the water samples and in the fish. And when they ran it through what kind of industrial chemical this was, they found out it wasn't an industrial chemical, it was medicines. There were that many people in that huge population that were peeing it out, and it wasn't being pulled out of water. So who knows? We're going to end up with fish that don't have cholesterol problems after a while. Hiram, hey, good evening. Yeah, the Grail will get everything, including the viruses, out. Nathan, Dick Prenicky, the guy that went and built the cabin in Alaska, great videos. The books is good, etc. He did real well. You know, very enjoyable to read. Andrew, I was thinking of making a machete with a leaf spring off a truck. Be good to use. No. Um, Machete is a special type of spring steel. And yes, you can make a sword out of a leaf spring, but it's the wrong kind of spring steel. That's just the best way I can tell you. Kukris out in a pile I've got are made from leaf springs of Mercedes Benzes. It's a very durable, tough, but when you start talking about a machete, thin, very flexible, holds an edge well, and doesn't roll easy. That's a special set of talents. Here's the thing a lot of people don't get. We had to import into the United States from Europe until 1875 or 77 saws, because no blacksmith had the capability of making a saw in the United States. They were all coming out of Germany. It was a special type of spring steel. And so even though we could get the steel, we didn't have the technology to make it. And so if world goes sideways, no blacksmith can make a saw. He can make a sharp piece of metal with jagged teeth coming off, but it ain't gonna be really a saw, because even today that technology cannot be made except in specialized factories, specialized conditions. So making saws, making machetes, those type, that's a special process. They do that to make it. And so trying to make it out of something like a leaf spring, you can make something that'll hit, but it won't necessarily be what you're wanting. William Killingsworth, good evening, sir. Doing pretty good. See, we all been taking the boat out and going to swimming holes and stuff. Tim O'Neill, yeah, the old sewer plants overflow. Notice this. We'll have a flood in Texas, and Houston sits in a swamp, basically. The land there, even though it's dry, it was a swamp. And so Houston floods, and all their sewage gets flushed out, and that goes into the Gulf of Mexico. If you look at the current flowing in the Gulf of Mexico, it stays along the coast. It ain't out here in the middle. It's along the coast. And you watch about beach closing, beach closing, beach closing, beach closing, beach closing, and it's all the same. It's got hookworm. It's got flesh-eating bacteria. That's coming out of the sewer systems of Houston. And that cloud of that bacteria going down. There was a church group, I want to say it was like 2018, 2019. They'd come down from Tennessee on a church excursion, and they were only going to go to the beach for about 4 hours one day before they went home. And so they'd all decide, and this group probably 20 or 30 people, that what they were going to do to take the picture of being at the beach, because where they live is way up yonder in Tennessee, was the youngest member of the group, who, if I remember, I was like 10 or 12 years old, boy, going to lay down, and they were going to bury him in the sand, so just his toes sticking out and his head was sticking out, and they were all going to get on their knees and take a picture, and that was going to be the picture of the event. It was us at the beach, right? So they took the kid, they laid him down, everybody threw sand on him right quick. They took the picture, they pulled him up. He was buried less than 5 minutes. They spent a couple hours at the beach, and then they started back. They were about halfway to Montgomery, and he kept complaining until they finally had to seek medical attention. He had worms, hookworms. They were in the sand that had been washed out of the stockyards of Texas, and they'd worked their way. That, hookworm, he was eating it with it. They made a thing. They contacted, it was in several write-ups here in the state. They made a thing and contacted Pensacola and told them, said there's hookworms in the beach. You need to warn people. And the tourism board said, we don't walk barefoot on the beach. Tourism's a big industry. So, Tiny Titan, Friskers is a good hatchet, and you got one of the little jungle kukris. That's great. Yeah. Well, I agree, Edgar. It should be 15. But when you look at a kukri like mine, it's $121, and you've never had one before. That $30 kukri ain't too bad, especially when it's actually a pretty good piece of steel. I've got one that stays in the door of my truck, my little black truck, and has been there for years. And I use it a lot, as I want to go dig out my, heavy kukri, and it just want to trim a vine or something, or clean out the mailbox quick. That's the one I grab, and it's held up well for 10 or 12 years. But yeah, it should be 15. Good evening, Steve Kingsbury. How you doing? Yeah, Edgar, I've heard that they ate a lot of eel, and it was the sewage that was feeding the eels. Which now they had a river here in the U.S. that back in the 70s caught fire. I want to say it was like in New Jersey or something, but it was so polluted, the river caught fire and burned for 10 days. That's how bad it was. Will Killingsworth, Blackie, what's your thoughts about the Pathfinder basic survival class, intermediate class, advanced class? Is pricey, but seems to be a good overall course. Thinking of enrolling. They're very good classes. They do put forth a very good teaching schedule and etc. But know your skills before you go, because they're going to put you under pressure, is what I recommend. You're going to do a rucksack march at the beginning of it to get you a little bit winded, and they're going to put you to doing stuff. So already know how to do your fire building skills and etc. Think of it more as a graduation than a learning experience, because if you show up and you haven't practiced at all, it's going to be a real hard uphill battle. But if you take and they give you they'll give you an idea of what's going to be taught, so you can have an idea ahead of time. But I know a lot of the Pathfinder instructors, and I've heard of people showing up, have never used a ferro rod ever. They're pulling it brand new out of the package, and never used one, and now they got to build a fire one. So practice with all your stuff, and yeah, it's probably very worthwhile. Well, Steve, glad you made it. Once it cools off, Steve, we need to go back out there to the lake, sling up a hammock, and sit and talk. Jason Ritter, good evening. That's it, the Cayuga River outside Cleveland. That was it. Yeah, Carl, those shovels just, I have a friend, he's broken one. He broke a kukri of mine, and he broke a cold steel shovel, and he broke a trapdoor Springfield. Went to open the thing and sheared the pin off. He is walking chaos. I took the kukri, the two halves of it, and had it mounted on a board for him. And I took the broken cold steel shovel and had it mounted, so it's kind of like a cross, two halves of a kukri and two halves of a shovel. And I refused to let him mount my trapdoor Springfield he broke. I had to repair that. But the guy could break an anvil. Love him to death, but he could break an anvil. Jason Ritter, glad you're on here, sir. All right, Tennessee Smoke, the Darlings, yeah. And what was that really? The Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, I think it was. But they called themselves the Darlings when they were on the Andy Griffin show. Jason Rick, oh, thank you. Well, welcome to the group. Yeah, Steve, if we got that breeze, it's doable. But, let me get a little better up. But, I figure September and first weekend of October, we got a little gathering. It's not a gathering. It's just a few of us going to go out there and camp out. First weekend of October. So, Pink's coming and Pam and Vern and Walker and a few others. I plan to go out there and spend a couple days. Hopefully, it'll have cooled off by then. Solo Mine. Blackie, you're hanging outside right now. No, sadly, I'm not. This is a tarp I put up because if I didn't, what you're going to see behind me is all my camping gear and knives and all my stuff. And it's just how I store. It's like an index file of what I've got, everything organized behind me. But the problem with it is, if I do that, everybody's going to, Blackie, in your upper left corner, what is that? So we're not going to do that. Shaner, I have many canteens. One in particular came from the 1960s, made in Japan, welded with lead on the sides. Only used for dirty water before I filter. Should I get rid of it because of lead? Yes. If that is lead, get rid of it. It's just, it builds up. Every time you take a drink, you take the one. Once it gets in you, it don't come out worth a flip. And so it's kind of like one more straw in a camel's back. So just not worth it. Little Killingsworth, yes, sir. CJ, it's whoever wants to show up. It's not an official gathering. It's just we're going to go out there and camp. But first actually, I think like 6, 7, 8, something like that. First weekend October, I'm planning on going out there and camping. I've got several friends coming, and so I'm not going to call it a gathering. I'm just saying I'm going camping that weekend, and that's where I'm going to be. Good, Steve. Glad to hear. Andrew, yeah, Blackie's green screen. Yep. John Lattermick. Aren't we all pack rats? Sleeping bags, backpacks, haversacks, pocket knives. I could start a Pocket Knives Anonymous. Hello, I'm Blackie. I haven't bought one for the last 4 hours. It just, I'm always got to have something new to play with. Jeff Donnelly. Yeah, no damn it, Blackie, no show and tell. It wouldn't be a show and tell, it'd be distraction, because little Pete. Gear. Tubs and tubs and tubs and packs. That deal. And it's just better to not have to worry with it. Oh, Will Killingsworth, the packs for the Pathfinder classes. I've watched a few videos, but there seems to be no straightforward list. Where's the list for the basic class? Get with me on Facebook, and I'll contact one of the instructors. I know some of them, and I'll see if I can give you whatever the list is. Because I know whenever you take a class, they give you a list of what's allowed and what ain't, and what gear you need to have. Get with me on Facebook. Remind me on Facebook, and I will See if I can get you that list, sir. Tiny Titan, I hear you. Just holler at me on Facebook. I'm Blackie Thomas on Facebook. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. Yeah, Richard Hayes. Yeah, I can see that. No tarp next time. Yeah, we'll spend all the thing on. Okay, Black. What is that pack? Show that pack. What's this? What's this book over here? Yeah. Chuck Miller. Yes, it's where I hold my gathering. It'd be the same place. It's just the first weekend we're going out there and camping. I've got several friends coming. And I said, it's not officially a gathering, but if anybody wants to show up, I'm going to be there for several days camping. But I'll definitely be there that first weekend of, I think it's 6, 7, 8, I think is the first weekend. First full weekend. I think the first day is on Sunday. No, it's the first full weekend, like 6, 7, 8. Jay's laughing interest. What do you think of the more elders? I think it's a very nice knife, but to be honest, the little bitty short stubby handle didn't fit my hand well. I had one for a while, and I thought it'd be a great little knife for whittling and doing tricks, and it just didn't fit me. It's very nice, and I have 2 or 3 close friends that love theirs. It just I need a long, thin versus wide one. It's just the way it fits my hand, but it's a good piece of steel. Shaner, if you've got what I recommend by that has any kind of canteen, has any kind of lip in it or whatever, is you come home, you rinse the thing out real good, and I put like 4 drops of unperfumed, no dye, pure bleach. Drop it in, fill the canteen halfway up, screw the cap on, shake the snot out of it. Turn it upside down so it's on the cap. Let it sit there like 5 or 10 minutes. And then I want to fill it all the way to the, take the cap off, fill it all the way to the top, screw it on tight, and let it sit overnight. Tomorrow I'll pour that water out and either let the canteen dry, or where I normally do is I just fill it to the top, absolutely to the top, and store my canteen solid full of water and put it back out there in my thing. Nothing seems to grow because there's no oxygen. And I've sterilized the canteen. Is the way I handle it. So if it's got that little lip up there you're talking about, that will take care of it. Brett Britton, what's an alternative contact site for you? Email me at downanddirty woodscraft at gmail.com. Let me see. I wrote it on here. Was it last time? Yeah. Down in dirty woods with an S craft at gmail.com. Email me there and we'll go from that. Hey, I've seen one. I know what you're talking about, but I haven't had one where it's a freestander put over. Should be pretty nice, especially for a freestander, especially for you and your son. Yeah, that would be fairly viable. Yeah, Justin Coon is right. You can use denture cleaner to sterilize canteens and stuff like that as well. But I just always use bleach. But now, hey, if find what works. You know, if you've got a Nalgene canteen like I do, these can handle boiling water. If you get the stainless steel canteens, they can handle boiling water. So I just simply take it and bring water to boil and fit it to the top, set it in the sink. You know, the cap, if it's plastic, don't, but just fill it all the way to the top with boiling water, and that'll sterilize it too. Just let it sit there, because the heat will kill anything bacteria wise, whatever that's in there. But a lot of them classes, they like you to make tar cloth inside of a canteen, and that was never a good idea to me, because it always leaves something in the canteen that makes your water taste like garbage for a while. But you know, Thomas Shee, well, welcome to the crowd. Thank you for coming this way from Waypoint. He's a great guy. Edgar, you can just drive in on a regular car. Now, it's a dirt road, but it is an improved dirt road. That means it's a mixture of red clay and sand. So it's, unless it has been just deluging, you don't have any problem. Because when you mix red clay and sand, sand is horrible when it's bone dry, it just rolls. When it's wet, it locks in well. Red clay is concrete when it's dry, and it becomes soup when it's wet. You mix the two together, and you've got an all-over road that it'll roll in. We have people rolling in on small cars, compacts, all of the above. It's well maintained. It's part of the forest, and this is their designated camping area. It's Geneva State Forest Lake, not Geneva Lake. That's a county lake. Geneva State Forest Lake. If you go look at my channel and look up my gathering or the drive-in, I've got a video showing you all the turns I had to get straight to the campsite on there. And I will announce for my gathering in the spring, I'll announce things coming up to it. I won't be doing that for the October one, because it's not officially a gathering. It's just us going to go out there and camp out. You know, I'll ask like a week out how many people are going to show up, and I'll see about getting us firewood for it, because I always provide firewood. And I don't want to have to go buy 2 cords, you know, whenever not that many people show up or what the weather is. So that's the reason I'm not going to call it a true gathering, because I'd have to go ahead and start buying firewood and stuff now. Remax, cool. Now, here's something else with those these type of tarps. Some of them are a little bit sticky, and that's just material. And I talked to a military vet. He said that's where they were when they're new. What you want to do is put them out in the sun. Let them get a little sticky. That's the silicone curing in it. Flip it so it gets sun both sides. And then whenever it's kind of aired out and quit that, what he said to do was take baby powder and just sprinkle it on it and smear it around. And that's what they did in combat to keep them from being sticky in combat. And I had like 5 of them. This one is not sticky at all. And I've got one that's really sticky. And I put baby powder on it and smeared it around and made it work just fine. So, and I've done a video that'll be posting next week, I think, where I'm talking about that, about these, and you may want to put a little bit of baby powder or cornstarch on it. If it's the sticky, just put it out in the sun first, let it air dry a day or two till the sticky goes away, and then put just a little bit on it and smear it in, and you're fine then. John Loudermilk. Well, if I'll definitely need them in March or April when I hold my gathering. Just depends on what you want to do till then. If it's something you're going to stack up anyway, fantastic. Bring it on. I appreciate it. I'll pay you for it. On the other hand, if it's not, I understand too. Yeah, I'll tell them that, Shane. I understand what you're saying. Where it rolls under instead of rolling out, so there's a little lip to catch water on the inside. It should work. Baking soda should work. Well, now hold on a minute. What they said was use cornstarch or baby powder. Baking soda, when you add water to it, it turns into a paste. So that, you know what I mean. Um, and what I used was baking powder. So that's what I can tell you. That I can't speak to putting baking soda. It would seem to make sense, but at the same time, I don't know if it would turn into some, whatever. Good evening, Bang Bang. Thank you for coming in. Oh, but I'll tell you videos it's going to be posting. I don't know. Let's see. Did it post tomorrow or did it post Sunday? I think it posted tomorrow. Um, Remember in video fairly recently, I talked about Altoids 10, survival kit. And I was just being honest. I said a lot of these are teddy bears. That it gives you an idea you got something, but in reality, you don't have a lot. Okay. And several people sent me a link to a video by one of the Pathfinder instructors. It's Ranger something. I don't remember the gentleman's name. Andrew's the gentleman's name. And I saw him at Pathfinder, but I didn't get to speak to him. And he did a thing where he put the 10 seeds into a drinking cup, although he didn't have a cover element. And so I decided to take the challenge and see what I could get the smallest set that would have everything, including a cover element in it, a tarp. And so I did that, and it'll be posting, I want to say tomorrow at about 3. And in I go through some of the choices I made, and I did it where it would fit inside of a 1 quart Pathfinder bush pot, and then the bag cover I got from Campcraft, or everything fit into a U.S. Army canteen cup and cover without the canteen. So I had a canteen cup, a stove, the deal, da 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 da, and put it together. And the whole thing fit into that bag about that big. So, that's what's going to be coming tomorrow. Feedback from you guys. You ask a question, I do my best to come up with an answer. Brett, they do, but best thing to do is find somebody in the military and say, "Hey, if I give you the money, will you go to the place and get me one?" Because they have to buy them. They issue you one. If you want another one, you got to buy it. Well, tell them I'll give you the money if you go buy me one, and see if they go get it for you. Adam and Eve, Blackie Thomas, have you ever owned a Remington Pocket 31? If so, what was your opinion of it? I have not owned one, but I have shot one, and I enjoyed it. It was a very handy little fun pistol. Now, I never hunted with one or anything, but as far as just enjoyment, taking it out, shooting targets with it, yeah, it works just fine. And that little bitty 31 does about like a 22 long rifle, really. It's a bigger diameter, similar weight, moving at similar speed to a 22 long rifle out of something the same size. So it seems to do pretty good, especially if you're going to go out. And they're great. I mean, look how little lead you use casting your own bullets and how little powder you're using. Those are like, 5 or 10 grains of powder. There's 7,000 grains in a pound. So you get a lot of shots out of a pound. And if it's just an enjoyment gun to go out and shoot, absolutely. Be great for that. Mike B. Good evening. Know of any gatherings in North Carolina or Eastern Tennessee coming this fall? Not in Tennessee, but I do know that West Virginia's got one going in September. Uh, Not far south of you in Georgia at Georgia Bushcraft, they'll have one in November. We'll be going. I'll be at that one, and I'll be at the hold on. I'm gonna be in Ohio in October with Waypoint Survival doing the class for the Silver Wolves. I'll be in that's in late October. Then 1st of November, I'll be at Georgia Bushcraft. There'll be that gathering there, and I know that there's a gathering in West Virginia somewhere in September, and I believe there's something there in the Carolinas. I believe it was in North Carolina, but I honestly don't remember the date. I'm sorry, but I seem to recall it was somewhere in mid-October. So I'm sorry, I can't give you any better answer than that. Good evening, Dakota. How do you feel about the 270? Good gun for deer, good gun for hog. The 270 was developed when Town Willeen went over to Europe, and one of the Carcanos. He fell in love with this bullet. He hated the rifle, he hated the cartridge, but the bullet he liked, and he brought back a barrel of bullets. And he went to Springfield Armory and asked them to get an 03 Springfield chambered in that. So they nicked down the case of a 30-06 to 27 caliber and rifled the barrel, and it's a 270. He thought it shot flatter than a 30-06, didn't have quite as much recoil. 270 is a good caliber. YouTube Press. I'll keep that in mind. 10 Hut in Pensacola. Blackie, where do you plan to camp for the month of July? You said your goal is to camp at least one time a month. I had talked about going here recently. However, my health got in the way. So I'm going to play it by ear. But if I get the chance, it's probably going to be one of them overnight run out of here, get there, an hour before dark, throw up a camp the night, and get out of there early in the morning to be able to say I camped in July. It'll probably be ditto for August. The doc just really does not want me in the heat. And y'all saw how worn out and drawn I looked last time. And it's just because of health. And they really, 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 really don't want me in the heat. And I'm trying to do my best to meet my goal of camping every month, but at the same time, I'll probably just run out there to the lake, and it'll probably be a spur of the moment thing where I've got the time, and it's not going to be too hot that night or whatever. So, but like I said, once it gets back to fall time and it cools off, I'll be going out there a lot more. So, well, if you want to get together and do something, let me know. We'll work something out. I know Steve would like to do it and everything else. Blackie, do you have any experience with the Leatherman signal? I do not. I'm sorry. I've used quite a bit of Leatherman tools, but I'm not familiar with the signal right off the top of my head. YouTube Press. Well, now, YouTube, wait a minute. You're down there in Pensacola, Florida. There used to be a group down there in Northwest Florida. God. Wasn't Pensacola, but it wasn't far out of Pensacola. I think it was around Niceville or something. that there was a black powder club down there. Do a search. Go look at the National Muzzle Loading Rifle Association. Go to their website. Look for affiliated clubs, Northwest Florida, and I bet they come up. And that'll give you an idea of some place to go and learn about black powder shooting. Justin Coon, Blackie, have you ever used 35 with lean? I have fired one. I have never hunted one. I had a friend of mine that had come down from Maine, and he loved the 35 with lean and the 35 Remington for bear. He loved 35s, but I had, other than just shooting it on target range, me, it felt like a 308 when it went off. That's just my little take on it. I know it's a fatter bullet, but that the sensation when you pull the trigger, like a 308 went off. Edgar, absolutely. I grew up in a house that didn't have an air conditioner. We didn't get a hot water heater till I was in high school. And the only heat was one space heater in the middle of the house. My grandmother turned that off every night at 10 o'clock. And when the wind blew, you'd see calendars move on the walls. You know, so if it was 21 degrees outside that morning, it was probably 28 in the bedroom. You didn't get up and run to the toilet until you had to. So, as far as the heat, all the windows shut in that house, and it was an oven, and you just laid in sweat. I mean, it was different time. Jay's life interest. Everyone is asking about different cartridges. Blackie, what's your favorite cartridge? If you're talking about a deer cartridge, 30-06. Because my first love is an 03 A3 Springfield. Sorry. No apologies. I've taken anything that walks, crawls, or flies at some point with a 30-06. And that was the deer gun, the hog gun, whatever. And then uh, that's my favorite. If you're going to talk about big game cartridges, you're going to tell me I can have one rifle to hunt anything in North America. Without question, it's going to be 03 A3 30-06 because I've got so much experience with it. Let me hand load it. I'll take everything from prairie dogs all the way up to Cape Buffalo. You know, it's just how you load it and where you put it. Take care, Jonathan. Oh, okay. You're in Selma and Tuscaloosa. Okay, yeah. There used to be a big club in Independence, Alabama up there. You might want to check. And then there's your Ozark is the Whitewater Long Hunters. So that's pretty dry for you. But there used to be a lot of clubs here in Bama. Yes, Brett Johnson. The swamp coolers. They used to do a thing where they would make three hanging trays, and they put burlap coming from a pool in the top, and it ran out all the way around, and it was coarse burlap, and it let it wick water all the way down, and any kind of breeze went through there, cooled the inside of it. Swamp cooler refrigerator. You see them in a lot of the magazines and stuff for camping in the 20s and 30s. And I built one. It worked. It did really, really good. You know. Adam and Eve, what is the best way to support you? Donation or just however you like. If you wish to donate, there's something in this called Super Chat. I don't have a clue how it works, to be honest with you. But there's something on this. But I don't do PayPal or Patreon. I do PayPal, but I don't do Patreon or nothing like that. And I was doing my classes that I was doing, and I am still going to be doing the Master Woodsman, but this is a good time to bring it up. I'm shutting down the percussion revolver class for a little bit because of YouTube. Uh, the way things go, they cut your pay in half if you post anything gun related. Even though I'm talking about percussion revolvers, doesn't matter. And so I told everybody on the class list, and I think there was 480 people on the class list for this month, that I'm gonna not be doing the class for a little bit. I'm gonna be shifting the cap and ball revolver stuff and all like that. I'm getting it organized, and I'm gonna repost it over on Rumble, and I'll give everybody. I'm Blakey Thomas on Rumble. I've only got one video over there right now, but I'm gonna post it over there, and then I'm gonna start posting just the cap and ball content and firearm content to there. I will keep posting my witchcraft, bushcraft stuff exactly where I'm at. I'm going to split it off and put it over there because that's a freer environment for me to talk about it. Because I like to talk about pump shotguns and automatic shotguns and 1911s and revolvers and bolt action rifles and hunting and percussion guns and muzzle loading shotguns, and not be penalized by this platform where they basically just cut your money in half for the month because you posted one video. So that's my goal, is to shift it over there and keep this going right here what I'm doing. Steve Kingsbury, the old Pump 760. Yes, those are good. And then what was it? The 7400 was the semi-automatic version of it. I've seen both of them. John Loudermilk, I hear you. Buckeye, you're correct. 30-06 was 0303, and they only went to 06 whenever they put a pointed bullet on it. When it was old round nose, it was 0303. And I remember a couple of holding in my hand 03 Springfields from the first year of production that were 0303s. And then they come in later and they cut a notch up in the top so that you could feed a pointed bullet down into it. And top of the receiver up there. Zippity doo thank you. Like I said, that's my game plan. In fact, I shot a whole like 2 hours of video talking about survival shotgun with the intention of putting it on Rumble. And I'm lazy, guys. I do so much to produce here, and a lot of stuff you don't see behind the scenes. And right now I'm real busy with new product development and stuff like that. And I'm field testing for some people and all kinds of stuff. And I've just been swamped. And I need to get off my butt and do it. Jeff Conlon, the old 30-30 will do anything up close. There ain't a piece of game on North America that ain't been dropped with a 30-30 at some point. It's just but now if you drop, Levolution ammo in it, it'll do anything a 308 will do out to 300 yards. But that rounded flat bullet, because you're going in a tubeless magazine, it's like a parachute when it comes out. Man, does it smack. And it does a great job on 0 to 150 yards of smacking game. Does a great job. But that trajectory, because it's acting like a parachute, put Levolution in there with that ballistic tip on it. And I've got a good friend of mine. He used to be a Marine Corps scout. And he's got a scope on his, and he'll do anything out to 300 yards with that Marlin. You know, it's perfect gun for him because he can drop standard or even hollow point 30-30 in there and be in the thick woods and just smack the dog out of them On the other hand, he can drop in one of those and he's good at 300 yards, which is a long, long, long shot in Alabama because our woods are so thick. You're sitting on a field shooting to the far side of the field. It's the only opportunity you're going to have that kind of range. So, yeah, 30-30. I don't discredit 30-30. Dakota, no, I don't think you'd be demonetized for that at all. I think you'll be just fine by it. Will Rowell, have you ever used an M1A or an M14? I used them in competition. I built me one. And back when I was doing gunsmithing. And yes, and I shot out to 1,000 yards with the M1A and an M14. And I know the difference. And good rifles. But to be honest, I love an 03 A3 better, and it's nothing against it, but I want so bad to love an M Grand. But the cartridge 30-06 03 A3, the M14, big box magazine, big 10-pound rifle, shoots great and etc. But I can outshoot it with an 03 A3. And so I built, made them for competition, shot them in competition, and used them where you wanted rapid fire on targets, things like that. But I love them. I think they're very picturesque. Have you ever tried a BM-59, which is where we gave Italy a bunch of M1 Grands into the World War II, and they redone them into 308 and put a box magazine in them, shortened it down, and they came out before the M14. And it looks like a SOCOM M14, but it's actually a shortened Garand shooting in 308. That's a BM-59. I've got to handle one, got to shoot one, never owned one, but they were fun guns. Stephen, Blackie, what's your opinion on the Moore Garberg? Have you ever used one? I have used one, and if you're looking for a serious bushcraft knife and you like the Moores, yeah, Garberg. They do very, very well. They got a good thick spine on them. They cut well, etc. And so it would be a good choice. Yeah, Shaner, they make it. Now, understand what's a 460? A 460 is a 4.5 Colt blowed out to maximum power. Bottom line. 460 can shoot a 45 Colt in it, just like 4.54 Casull. And what it is you cannot hot load the 45 Colt too much, because somebody will drop it in great granddaddy's antique and blow it to smithereens. Since that was a black powder cartridge, and for the bulk of its life, it was a black powder cartridge. And the dropping it in, that's when they invented 4.54 Casull, and just said, instead of saying 45 Colt, loaded the 44 Magnum ballistic, because somebody would have dropped one in and blowed up an old antique. And so they again hopped it up and made a 460 to make sure you couldn't turn around and drop it into one of them antiques. And but it's Dan Lutz had a 460. I shot it, and yes, they do make. I've seen the Rossi ones in 4.54 Casull. I've seen a single shot that Dan had a custom one made up, and a single shot H&R that was in 460 rifle. They had custom made. They shoot very well. It'll do anything a 30-06 will do out to 150 yards. And it'll feel like you pull the trigger on 30-06. I'm here to tell you, that gun weighed 7.5 pounds, and when I pulled the trigger, it felt like a 30-06 when I pulled the trigger on it. Wicked Viking, you made it for the last couple of minutes, but you made it, brother. Comprops, yeah. You're right. BM-59, where they modified, did have a longer stroke, and so it does feel softer. We know that shooting a M1 Garand, shooting an M14. The 14 is a 308, but it has a harsher kick. It's not harder recoil, but I'll just say it's a little more violent kick, something that you really notice when shooting the two guns side and side, where power level, the 30-06 is more powerful, but because the 308's 80% of it, but it's because of that sharp kick in the very end of the stroke that you can tell. And that's one of the reasons whenever I've had one and used it, trying to shoot in competition, I preferred the kick of the 30-06 bolt over my 14. And that's the reason after I'd shot a competition for a while, I always end up selling them. So. Yeah. Tom, perhaps you are correct. That's exactly it. It gives it more time to decelerate. The longer spring gives it more time for compression, longer dwell before it gets there. The one gun that is the most violent kicker I have ever seen was it's a Remington. Golly, Africa use it a lot for shooting things like zebra and etc. I got 416 in my head. That's wrong, but it's a Remington, and it's an odd number, like a 410, 418, 420, 4 something. And that's gonna bug me all night. I'll look it up, but it's one of the most violent kicking guns, and I got to shoot one at a range one time, and it was just violent when you pull the trigger on it. And power wise, it's right up there. It's a little bit above. It's like a 300 hot load 300 Magnum, but the violence of it when you pull the trigger, it's a car wreck compared to a shove. It literally felt, even though I was braced and knew what was coming, when I pulled the trigger, it was like you slammed me in the shoulder with a 2-pound sledgehammer. It was just one of the most violent kicks I'd ever seen in a bolt action rifle. Now, I've shot bigger guns than that, but it was the most violent. 416 Remington, thank you. That's it, 416. That sucker is just, there is no fun. There is no enjoyment, you know. Glad to do it. Oh, yeah, the old T-Rex rifle. That's a great video, ain't it? The guy at the end that you see that shoots and then works the bolt and he goes again, that's the owner of that rifle. He commissioned that rifle. It was made in a German firm in Egypt. That's reason you see the Saudi type guys, the Egyptian guys in the traditional garb. And it was a precision machine place in Egypt. And they took the commission to build that rifle. And that was them testing that cartridge, that T-Rex killer. And that guy is a professional hunter, and he works in Africa, and he's guiding millionaires and billionaires on hunts. And he was so sick of some rich boy pissing off a two-ton pachyderm and him having to step up. He said, I did not want a hunting rifle. I wanted a stopping rifle. I wanted it to shatter the skull of a bull elephant. And that's a T-Rex rifle. That thing is ridiculous. But you see everybody shooting it, blowing them against the walls and everything else. And then that one guy there at the very last couple moments of that video, that guy shoots and then chambers to go again. That's his rifle. That was him shooting it. Tennessee Smoky, good night. Okay, Wicked Viking, look for Bears Old Ways, but it's Wayz, not S. Ways instead of S. Bears Old Ways, and you should come up to it. Woo! Compops. The Hakeem. Yes, it is. But the problem with the Hakeem is it screams when you pull the trigger. That flash hider with all the little bitty holes going forward, earplugs and earphones, and it still made my head ring. It is wow. How those guys were not stone cold shooting that thing, I don't know. Good, Wicked Viking. Glad you did. Yeah, the Hakeem looks to me. I know what you're talking about. The Lundgren gun or whatever, but it looks like a scaled up SKS. You know the way everything works. So if you do the receiver, come back and go forward. But when you first look at it, you think it's an SKS type gun. But the guy that was in our Black Powder Club, he had a Hakeem, and we hacksawed the flash hider off of that thing to quieten it down because those little holes just screamed when you pulled the trigger. And we hacksawed it off to quiet the gun down and re-threaded it and screwed in the bird cage off of an AK, and it quietened it down by 50% at least. You can now shoot it with just standard earplugs. Before that, with earplugs and earphones on, every time you pull the trigger, it just rung your bell. It was ridiculous. Oh yeah, the load it up when that whole top bolt takes off. Yeah, M1 thumb ain't got nothing on it. It'll smash your flat. Yeah, that Swedish. I've seen that. Where they grab the top cover and do that chunk chunk, and it grips. And chunk chunk, and that's how you chamber, just grabbing the whole top of it. Buckeye, correct. Jack O'Connor did. And if you go back even further, at the turn of the 1900s, the 7mm Mauser was being used to take elephant and all kinds of stuff. Which today, just a plain 7mm Mauser, we would put it in a power level of slightly below that of 308. But it was so revolutionary for its day, and the Spitzer type bullets were able to penetrate skulls of these animals well, and these guys could shoot. That was the whole thing. You got to realize how accurate these guys were. Something I like to point out was um, to graduate basic training from the U.S. Army in 1875, you had to have 3 hits out of 10 tries on a 6-foot tall, 2 feet wide white board at 1,000 yards with iron sights. At 10 tries, you had better have 3 hits. If you couldn't hit that board at least 3 times at 1,000 yards with iron sights, you didn't graduate basic training because you couldn't shoot. And you read the reports of where they were using these single shot trapdoors to hold off Kiowa at 800 yards. That by the beginning of World War One, they were practicing with bolt actions out to 2,500 yards, lobbing volley fire out to 2,500 yards. And then you go tell somebody that's coming out of basic training today and they're shooting on a 300-inch range. Great granddaddy would have laughed at you boys. You can't shoot for crap. They had to do it with iron sights at 1,000+ yards. Amazing what those guys could do. And these were just run-of-the-mill shooters of that day. So Compops, thank you very much. Justin, I had a English high power with tangent sight that had whopping SS marks on it, where it had been captured at Dunkirk, issued as alternate issue to German forces, recaptured and brought in the United States. It had a 13 round mag that had a Waffen stamp at the bottom of it, and it had a Waffen stamp on the side of it. That it had Belgian proof marks, English proof marks, Canadian proof marks, and Wehrmacht proof marks on it. I sold that about 87, 88. Probably for not nearly enough. But that day surplus was everywhere. You could pick stuff like that up. You know, I can remember whenever you could pick up a P38 for a Walther P38 for like $125. When Lugers went for 200. I remember when SKSs came back in the 80s and you could get a brand new Russian SKS in Cosmoline wrapped up in the factory brown paper, and they were $65 a piece. And that was right before the Clintons went into office, because when they went into office, that's when the price jumped up on them. Yeah, Jeff, the Browning High Power, that was always my number one. Love my 1911. I really do. But the Browning High Power, I can be confused, half drunk, spin around, and I can bring that gun up in center of mass. It makes me look good. And my high power ended up with a couple of ladies who were moving north. And I felt they needed protection. And so I had taught the two of them out and taught them how to shoot, and they ended up taking my high power. I gave it to them as a present. And so I kicked myself in the butt for that. But the gun I got to replace it is a one-to-one copy of a CZ75, which is like next generation Browning high power, but it's double action. And I can do exactly what I did with my high power. And we went out to the range not long ago, and I ran all the Doolin tree and ran all the plates just going pop, 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 pop. You know, it makes me look good. So I love my 45, but with good hollow points in the 9 and stick them in there like that, yeah. Amen, Chuck. The thing that I laughed about in Rifle Magazine a number of years ago, the guy that's the one of the editors, chief editors, would do the editorial in the beginning of it. And he was talking about the number one selling rifle in Alaska in 5.56 was not the AR, but was the Mini 14. And he said it's far preferred in the backcountry over the AR platform, and said we call it cook gun. That almost every one of the hunting camps in the backcountry have got a Mini 14 behind the door. And somebody wrote back in next issue and said, I don't think much of the 223 caliber, especially when you're dealing with big bear and everything else. I feel it is wholly inadequate. And the editor responded to it and said, you are correct. 1.556 bullet is wholly inadequate whenever you're talking about an angry grizzly or a pack of wolves. However, have you ever seen a scared cook with a 40 round mag? One won't. I bet 40 of them will. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've seen cooks empty a mag for the first brass at the ground. You know, the trigger's working faster than the cycle in action. He's that nervous. Well, guys, that's 2 hours. We're going to call it quits for the night. Thank you very, very much for all the comments and stuff. I always go back and reread them later. And thank you very much for all the support. Thank you for all the well wishes this past week when I was having a little bit of health issue. And I plan on being on next Thursday night, same time, same channel, that type of stuff. And hope to see you then. Till then, guys, y'all be safe.